Welcome back to Second Breakfast and our ongoing Summerween series, celebrating hot weather and horror movies by bringing you the best thoughts, theories, and literary analysis this side of the Abaddon Hotel.
In this grand finale of our 2025 Summerween series, we are putting a cherry on top of our Hell House discussions by having a conversation with the great Stephen Cognetti, the architect of the Hell House franchise. For some reason, he agreed to talk to us, and we got to talk to him for over an hour, and this is a real treat for you guys. It was so much fun to talk to him. This is our big Halloween special. Great way to end the Summerween series. Strap in and enjoy.
All right, so Hell House LLC Lineage is finally streaming on Shudder for everyone who wasn't lucky enough to see the limited theatrical release that we were, and we are lucky enough to be joined today by the series writer, director, and creator, Stephen Cognetti.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you. Stephen, I'm going to jump right in and ask our first question, but I should say, listeners, we are going to spoil this movie. I mean, we've already talked about this movie, but we're going to spoil it in this interview as well. So if you have not heard our coverage of Hell House, and if you haven't seen this movie, I cannot recommend it enough. It's such a delightful finale to this story. But we're going to get into it, and I'm going to spoil it. So let's get into it. Stephen, first question. You've been talking a lot in the last couple months about how this is the final Hell House movie, but there's been a lot of talk about, well, there's ambiguity in the ending, so there's probably more story to tell. So my question is, do you still, 2 months after that theatrical release, feel like you're done making Hell House, or do you feel like maybe there's some other way you might want to dive into telling this story?
There is more story. There's different. I think a lot of the confusion when it first was released limitedly and why there was such pushback was probably because it was broadcast as a finale conclusion to the story, but I never meant it to be. I meant it just to be the last Hell House I'm making, but I already know what the sixth movie would be in the storyline. I'm just not making it. Is really there's so much more story to tell afterwards and beforehand. There's so much more with the cult in the 80s, that story that I've written out but never adapted to screenplay form and went into production with. So your question is, how do I feel after that? Is that still the case? There could be other ways that the stories get told. I've talked to some audience, Hell House fans, about possible like kind of graphic novelization of some of the stories that haven't been told. But I mean, that's just like talk. There's nothing actually no infrastructure, no structural plans for that yet. It's just kind of like talk, speculation. But I never meant for this to be seen as the finale to the story, like the story being wrapped up in this. And that not being clear is a regret I have, because I think when you see the movie is so open-ended and ambiguous, the ending, that it naturally says, well, there's obviously should be more to tell, and there is. It's just the last movie I'm making is really all I meant that to be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's interesting thinking about Lineage, because we're in a unique position because we've had 2 months to process the ending of the film, and most people will just be seeing it now for the first time. But I don't know. I kind of like Lineage as the theatrical ending of the series. I was really struck by the interview you did on Rewind of the Living Dead. I thought that was fantastic, and they did a great job with the questions. But I really like the idea of this series continuing in novels or graphic novels, because when we talked about this in our previous episodes on the series, I love how deep the lore is. And I feel like a novel would complement the complexity of that world. And with a graphic novel, the comic panels would give you kind of the stillness and the fear and the terror of especially the first few movies. So there hasn't been any movement in any direction for kind of what medium you'd move to next?
No, and I've written plenty of story that I would love to dive into novelize. I'm just not a novelist. I think that's just a type of writing that I don't possess. So that would be a beast to undertake on my end. I know what it would look like, and I would love to dive into it, because I just think then if I were ever to do it, I would want to tell the whole story, not just what hasn't been seen yet. I would want to get into the details on the original Hell House that's not seen on screen, and kind of just tell the entire story. Let's really go all out. That would be my dream. Just like a kind of novelization of the movies in a deeper sense, but also things that haven't been seen yet. So doing both would be the dream. There has been, there's just been some initial things like me kind of jotting down what that would look like in outline form. But But again, I'm not a novelist, so I haven't like sat down and started writing any of that. And I'm neck deep in other features right now that I'm trying to get ready to go into production with. So, but I would love for that to happen at some time.
I think that's such a cool thing. I love the idea of it percolating out into different mediums. I am curious if it was, because you say, you don't want to make another Hell House movie. How would you feel if somebody else picked it up and wanted to make a 6th Hell House movie? Would that be exciting to you, or would that be like terrifying to you?
It would be terrifying to me because it's just something, I don't know, it's just something you're attached to. It's kind of like your thing for so long. It's been 10 years of my life, the story, and to see it be done without me would just feel weird. So and I don't know. I don't know how it. Yeah, you're putting me on the spot here. That's a good question. You can hear me. I'm mumbling on my end, like blah blah blah, because you could see my uncomfortableness with that. So
no, that's
if it's not coming through, yeah. No, so I think it'd be cool. I think. Man, what a question. I would love to. I think fans deserve something more than just Lineage being it. And if that is, what we just talked about, novels, or if that's something where another production company takes it up, acquires it, and starts telling the stories, or bridges, satellite stories within the world or whatever, I think that would be fun, and I would keep it going. And I just would like to, I guess, have a say in a little bit what's going on. But I don't know if that would ever come to pass. If that happened, like if they no, you don't have a say. It's kind of like what they did to George Lucas. Like he said, he gave them outlines, and they were like, "Thanks, George," and they threw those outlines in the garbage. And then that would really make me weep. So
of course,
not kind of pardon the pun here, but I think there is an interesting lineage of writers and especially filmmakers telling a story across more than one medium. I'm thinking of Michael Mann writing the novel for Heat 2 before he's going to make the movie. Or even back in the day, Douglas Adams, with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that started as a radio drama that he was writing the scripts for, and eventually he started doing the novelizations to the point that he outpaced the radio drama, and then they had to adapt it. So I think there's enough precedent there where, I don't know, as a fan, I think I would love following the story in any medium, but I don't know. That's just one perspective.
Yeah, and I think it would have to be worth people's time. I wouldn't just do a recap novelization. It would have to bring something to the table, both with the scares and the story. All would have to be there in novelization form, and I'm just a visual person, so I would love to include visualization, the graphics, concept art, which I'm so into concept art. I love the concept art for any of my screenplays. I like to just get concept art for scenes, and I did that a lot with Hell House. I've been releasing some of them on my Instagram recently, and I think that's fun to see. I have this old version of The Stand, Stephen King's The Stand, my favorite novel of all time. And there's this version of it that has he has a kind of concept arts, like kind of just pencil art, throughout the story, and I loved that as a kid, reading that and seeing like little visualizations, black and white, pencil drawn visualization. So anything, it would be like that, but more, and just so people could see the world as they're reading in depth, and also the scares, like something visual to accompany the scares, I think would be fun.
I'm curious. I asked earlier about like if somebody took it over, just because I was curious about the way you'd, what to me felt very like strategically phrased of, this is my last Hell House movie. And so I guess I'm curious, I'm wondering about your sort of choice to move away from filming this, and I know, and I'm sure part of it is maybe filming other things, but I'm wondering also, like, if you were given, like, say, I mean, this would never happen, but say you're given like a blank check, right? And you can do anything and shoot anything, what would you shoot? Is that sort of the main reason, like, is that kind of the determining factor of why you're choosing to move away? Or like, if you had, this unlimited amount, what would you choose to shoot for this story?
Within the world, you mean?
Yeah.
What would I choose to shoot within the world? I think I think the biggest reason why I wanted to move away is because I think I'm done with sequels. I think the sequel business is tough. I think sequels are they come with expectations, and then also you have to have prior knowledge going into a movie, and so it's not fun, it's not original. So I think that's the biggest problem with this last fifth film getting a theatrical release, is that it required so much knowledge going into it. You couldn't just be a horror fan, go see Lineage, and just sink into it without having to do a lot of homework.
That's totally fair.
And so I like originals for that. And then and then people that do know the four previous films have expectations of what they want the fifth film to be. So sequels are just tough. Originals are more fun because they don't require any knowledge of anything prior before. You could just go in there and sink into a whole new story. You have no expectations. You just let the story go and dictate where your enjoyment level. So that I just felt uncomfortable with sequels anymore. And I think the reason Origins was received, of all the films of sequels since the original, Origins was received the best. I think it's because it's almost original. It's almost very original. And I think that's the original Hell House, and then Origins were, I think, received the best amongst just general horror fans, not just Hell House fans, because it's the closest to an original film within the world. It doesn't feel sequel-y. There's things you need to know prior to enjoy Origins, but I don't think I guess, let me rephrase that. There's things that will make it better if you've seen the original trilogy, but you don't need that. You could still go into Origins and enjoy it just as on its own. And so I knowing that now, I'm kind of like, I just enjoy making original stories anymore. And so to your latter part of the question, which is if I had a blank check, what would I do within the Hell House world? I would probably, what I had planned for the fifth film was much bigger, and it would probably then, it was better to say, okay, I'd do this over two films. But in my head, I was like, but I'm not going to make two films. I don't have that in me. I'm not going to. So I have to stay with what I can do in this fifth film. And so a lot of the fifth film, the grandness was taking out of it, of the fifth film, which I would put into a sixth film. And I think the actual finale, the real conclusion to the story in the sixth film would be fun if you had a blank check. Because it does involve the greater Abaddon, the Rockland County Fair, and almost mirroring the original in a way, like an opening night gone wrong. But should the town put on this festival that has such a history, bringing it back while everything that's going on at the Carmichael house at the same time was the parallel action. I think it was going to be a lot of fun to write, but knowing that we have the coffee budget of other films, we can't, that's our budget, that like we can't do that. So it has to be pared back a lot. So I think I would make the sixth film that I really wanted to make if I had an unlimited budget. But also what's a close second is really telling the Abaddon Hotel story, its creation and what happened with the cult in there leading up to the suicide. That's a story I've outlined. I've written about 180 pages worth of script about that as well. And it's a fun story. It's got a lot of cool scares. It's got a lot of great history. A few kernels of that backstory have popped up in Origins. So what you see in Origins involving Patrick Carmichael is just a little bit of like the iceberg touching above the surface of those scripts that I've written about the 80s. So that would be something fun to get into as well.
Regardless of audience response, because I know there's been a lot of discourse about Lineage, and we were in the corner of liking it, and even more, I found it... I don't know. I found it conclusive. I know a lot of people talk about the ending and the reveal and the cliffhanger, and I guess if we already done a spoiler alert for the movie, we're going to have to talk about everything here. But
yeah,
regardless of the fandom, we're interested in your perspective as the creator, writer, director. For this being the last Hell House film that you're going to make, did making this one bring you any sense of closure?
Yeah, I had so much fun making this, and in going into it, knowing that it was going to be the last one, we were all going to be getting the whole gang back together, going in production on this. It was fun. It was a great way to go out for me personally, and I know a lot of people that have been involved with the project so long felt the same way. We went out. We were very happy with the product, happy with what we did. No matter what people say, I love what is on screen. I love the work everybody did, and it's exactly the way I visually, it could have hoped for it to come out on such a limited resources. So I was very happy when we wrapped and we had such a fun night in that last night of production, and I think, and the crew and the actors got along so well. It was just a great production to go out on. So I felt great walking away. Now, I did know leading up to when the release, I knew there was going to be a lot of fans saying, like, what the hell, like, there should be more, like, that can't be it. But I guess I was maybe naive and thinking, like, but I think fans will have fun kind of doing their own interpretation, like kind of thinking about it, speculating, and kind of like, what did the ending mean? Where could it go? Where has Mitchell been all this time? Like, really kind of doing a deep dive and trying to figure out the story rather than just being mad that that's how it ended. So, so I kind of thought, like, fans might have fun with this open-ended story because it gives a lot, because there's a lot to unpack, a lot to talk about, and rather than just having everything given to you on a platter. This is how it ends. Story's over. Nothing to talk about. So I guess that was naive on my side, but yeah, no, I did feel on my end closure, just because I just felt like we just have such a great production. It just, everything went smoothly. I've been working with some of these people for so long, and it's just we just, I think everybody crushed it, and I'm so proud of what everyone did. I felt great, and then the release came. And what was funny is it was like leading up, like it was like 2 days before release, and like this I think it was Bloody Disgusting or Dread or something came out with a review, and there's been some reviews, some of them mixed, some like and some of them like, no, this is good, but it was one of those publications came out with like a really bad review, and I was like, I was like, I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting any, like, glowing praise, but I just wasn't expecting something that bad of a review. And so I was like, oh shit, maybe this is not going to go over as well as I thought in my head. And so there, like 2 days before opening, I had to start uncertainty started to creep into me. Where before leading up to it, I'd be very confident that this was going to be well received. I guess distortions in my head about it being like, the greatest horror film of the summer. Of course not. No, we're up against like Weapons, like amazing films. Like there's no way. But I guess in our own little indie world space, it was it was going to just be well received for what it was. But then it wasn't, and I was surprised because but that article coming out right before the opening kind of started, I guess, letting me know like this might not go as planned.
No, I mean, audiences struggle with endings to long-running series. Like, it's people have all these ideas about where they want it to go and what they want wrapped up and what questions they want answered. Like, I think that I often see lots of like wildly varying opinions when anything ends. So like, yeah, but we were like, I think it helped us knowing how open-ended the ending was going to be going in, because it was pretty open-ended. But like, the more I think about it, the more that I love it, and I love chewing on possibilities of what could happen next.
That's what I'm kind of hoping. I hope like that it's something that over time people understand and enjoy more in retrospect, more so than what the initial reaction was.
I've got almost a counterintuitive question here, because I'm maybe it's more of a philosophical bent that I have thinking about the franchise, but for me, because we've rewatched the first film so many times, and that always feels like a complete story. I think every installment of this franchise, you get the sense that there is more to the world. And I know you've talked about that in other interviews, that there are little things that you've built on, and then there's mythology you've added over time. But for me, the first one felt complete. And then the scene at the end of the third film where you see that original cast again, and they're turning off the lights and they're in this kind of heaven or afterlife, that felt like
it's a mix of the Cheers ending mixed with Lost in a little bit.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that felt like even more of a complete kind of curtain call for that original story. For me as a viewer, seeing the fourth and fifth movies, they felt like accompaniments or kind of companion stories that deepened the lore, but I can't complain about an ending because I've already in my head kind of got two of them with that original cast in the first movie, and then seeing it all come full circle at the end of Lake of Fire. Do you see that as kind of the resolution?
I see that as the end. That's the end of the story for the Hell House gang. So when people always ask me like I did see a lot of people like why didn't we see like Alex at the end or something like. I've seen that comment before. Someone sent me that, like, it would have been better if we had more with the original gang coming back in. But I said their story is complete. Like, we saw that. Like they and that was the whole point of seeing that cast again, because I know I know that the original people that love the original love it because of that cast. I think that cast was great. Those characters were great. Everyone kind of fell in love with those five, and they did. The actors did an amazing job because of that, because they were so those characters were so well received. And so what I wanted to do in the third one, I wanted to give closure to them, and just because I knew people who loved Hell House loved those five, so I wanted to give them something from those five, and getting those five back for the third movie was tough because they were spread out all over the country. Sarah had already given up acting; she was screenwriting at the time. Like she was like, "I don't do acting anymore," and I was like, "Please, I just need you for one day."
It's so worth it. That ending it's such a satisfying and moving moment to see those five together at the end. So I'm so glad that was able to happen.
Yeah. And that's why that was for Hell House fans to say, like, here's your cast, here's their ending, here's this Hell House 5 that you guys love, here's their ending, definitive ending to their story. But that doesn't mean the story of Abaddon is done. The Hell House story that began in the original, the story of those five characters that are in that company, their story is done, but the greater story is not.
And I'm wondering, kind of on a zoomed out scale here, I don't know if it's even possible to end a story like this that's about cycles and cultists and possessions and demons, and that story can't really end because there are always going to be bad things that happen. There are always going to be...
Well, that's why I wrote the Bradley's dialogue at the end of Origins. Kind of touches on that evil never dies. So just to think, just because you burn down the Abaddon Hotel means that, everything's great now, is nothing bad is ever going to happen. It's what was going on there is bigger than just one structure and could never really just be destroyed by a fire.
Yeah, and so then I think this open-ended ending of this fifth installment, I think makes total sense with that sort of philosophical framework for your story. I think that makes total sense.
Yeah, hey, listen, preaching to the choir. I thought it did, but
people just gotta pay attention. That's all.
No, I was glad to do it. I mean, this idea with Mitchell, everything with him, that has been something that's been in my head since 2019, and how because I purposely made it ambiguous into what happened, who got out of the hotel. And I kind of put a pin in that. I said, I'm going to come back to this. I really want this to come back at some point. And never really was able to do it in 3 or 4 or anything, really talk about who got out of the hotel there at the end, Jessica or Mitchell. But we know it's not Jessica because we saw her dead. But so then it must be Mitchell. But then what the hell? Where is he? Mm-hmm. So my whole plan with Mitchell really came to fruition, and the longer plot of that came together in 2019, and how his connection to the hotel was going to be something far greater than what we knew was going to actually be more in the bloodlines and familial. The only thing I touched on in that sense that was from as I said, remember I wrote 180 pages of the early Abaddon cult life. Part of that, one of the main characters, not one of the main characters, a character that plays a role in that was a character named Beverly. And so I was able to bring her in, just as I mentioned, as a breadcrumb for people to pick up on in Origins. And then, so I was able to introduce that whole what could be with Mitchell, and kind of just tiny bit, indirectly. No one had any idea where that was going, though. But I introduced that in Origins and was able to kind of put more of a finer point on that in Lineage.
Do you think there's almost a point of no return in franchises? Because we love horror sequels, but I think there is kind of in some franchises there can be a diminishing returns. Like Maggie and I love Saw, and the first 7 will defend all day, but after that it gets a little wonky for us.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's almost reminding me of kind of the Seinfeld ending, the idea of like trying to go out on top instead of milking it forever, because I view all of these films as sort of curveballs. Something we haven't really touched on so far is the move from found footage to traditional narrative. And I know that struck a lot of fans as being such a departure, but for me, I've sort of sensed and maybe you can speak to this, kind of a restlessness in form in all of these movies, from the first one having the kind of handheld, grimy, almost VHS sort of quality, the second one having the television framing device, all the way up to almost the YouTube quality vlog, the Zoom call scare in the Carmichael Manor. I was interested in how you've lived with this ever-changing found footage form for 10 years and kind of kept it fresh for yourself?
I think that's been the struggle. The toughest thing to do is to keep found footage fresh. I think found footage is great. Obviously love found footage, but it will never die because it could be done in original ways. But when you're in the same world doing found footage over and over, there's a way for it to get really dull, or really dry. I would say repetitive, stale. And so that's what I was worried about with Hell House, that it's, so that's the whole thing I was talking about with sequels. So that's what I was worried about the most. It's this repetitive found footage within the same world would get stale, and I always trying to find ways to keep it fresh. And for instance, I tried the sequence I really wish I had more money to do was the Lazy Susan sequence in the Lake of Fire at the end there, because that was how do we move the camera almost as if it's cinematic camera, not found footage camera. Well, we put it on a moving centerpiece and have it spin around the room. But that sequence, I just wish I want that one back and just more money and just really, because it was supposed to be in the script. It's it's bigger. It's more things are demons are coming out of the walls, ripping people apart, and as blood's everywhere. And then it's but we have $15 to shoot it. So you get what you get. But I love that people appreciate that, because I think people go in there knowing that our budget is what it is, but are respectful of that. But that being said, the found footage thing is you're limited to what you could do scare-wise as well, story-wise as well. And so I've always been trying to find ways to get out of that and tell scares a different story. As you pointed to the Zoom call, that was one way of telling a scare that's not just someone walking down a hallway with a camera. What a normal found footage is turn the camera on yourself and there's something behind that character, So but I've always wanted to get into more traditional filmmaking, and because I've just always had a desire to, going to film school. That's what we did. So I was happy in Lineage to move away from found footage. I think it kept everything fresh. I think doing a fifth found footage film was not going to be enjoyable. It wasn't going to bring me any joy. There's no heart in it for me anymore. So I think the only reason why there was a fifth film at all is because I moved away from found footage. If someone said, "Hey, you're going to make a fifth found footage film," I'd probably be I'm probably going to just do something else. I just don't, not into it. My heart wasn't into it, because it's there's four of them. You've told scares in every which way within this world in found footage format that you can. I was happy to move on to telling it, being in the world, but telling it a different way.
Yeah.
Interesting, because when you mentioned the Lazy Susan sequence, I can immediately picture it. I remember what it looks like, and I remember feeling impressed. And I mean, we evangelize this film all the time to people. I think I said this in one of our other episodes, that I know I can sit anyone in my life down, show them this first Hell House movie, and I know it'll ruin their night. It's just so effective. But I don't, maybe this is because I'm a writer, but I admire this work so much because it feels so creative. And I've seen other parts of the fandom, every time they talk about Lineage or any of these films, they almost qualify it with mentioning the budget or how long you had to shoot. And when we talk about it, we don't do that. I love this franchise. I love Lineage without any caveats. I just think they're interesting and impressive and thoughtful films. And even when you think of the end of Lake of Fire with kind of the portal and Russell Wynn's ascension, I don't, as an audience member, when I see that sequence, which sure, if you threw $100 million at it, it would look unbelievable. But I know what's happening. I get what's being communicated. And as much as people talk about how scary these films are, I find them incredibly heartfelt too. And I think that's the thing that people come back for. When you make these movies, when you've developed this over the last 10 years, do you lead with character and plot, or is it the scares that kind of structure these stories for you?
I think the original was it was scares. At building a story, coming to scares first, because I think within this, the reason I say scares first, I mean, the story has to be there. The characters have to be there. I don't think anybody cares if your scare is good or not if they don't care about the characters. So that obviously has to come first. But my intention with the original Hell House is I want to make something that I find scary myself. So I kind of that was the initial idea behind it. It was like, let's make something very scary, as scary as possible. And I love scary movies. I love to be scared. I love watching. Me and my wife, we just love sitting down and getting scared. So Hell House is my I guess my attempt at trying to scare myself. So it really came from there. But then right after that, I was like, okay, well, how are we going to do that? And that's where I got into the story and wrote so many drafts of Hell House to begin with. Because the original draft of Hell House, I've said this many times before, people know this, it was not a found footage film. It was a regular narrative, 90-page script that told the story of Hell House and everything that gone wrong. I didn't like it. It just didn't feel right. It didn't feel good or original. So I rewrote it as more. What I did is I combined something that I love, which is a true crime docuseries, kind of like a NBC, like Dateline murder mysteries. And I said, well, let's tell the Hell House story from this angle, this documentary angle, maybe that. And I loved it. And if that first draft, when I came up with that idea, was just like, oh, this is fun. This is something I could see myself. Like if I saw this on like Amazon Prime, I would definitely watch that. I think that's like a fun angle at this. And so, but again, it's only going to. I knew going in, we're going to have a small budget. We're not going to go to theaters to have some big marketing budget. So nobody's going to know about it unless the scares are there. And that's the only way anyone's going to tell a friend, hey, I saw this movie on Amazon. You should probably check it out. Is if it's worth, if the scares are there and they're worth seeing. So I knew it had to be scary for it to gain any kind of audience. So it couldn't just be story alone. It had to scare. That was the challenge, though. But I fell in love with the story as I was writing, and the story of these five, and also the greater world around the hotel itself, the backstory. I knew there was so much more there than what was just in the 90 pages of script. So I think that all came organically. It's first going into the scares, like I want to make something scary, but then as draft after draft is like falling in love with the story and the world, the greater world, and figuring out what can I show, what can I only allude to, what kind of breadcrumbs can I put in there, and just having so much fun with that over time.
Yeah, it is so much fun to watch this whole thing organically unfold, and to think about mythology. One of Cam's favorite literary touchstones is the story of Faust and Dr. Faustus. And certainly in Lake of Fire, we get a direct reference to Faust. We're curious what the role, if any, that this Faust mythology played in your development of this story.
I thought it was a good parallel for both Alex and for Russell, the whole story of Faust, and so that's why I had it more as a symbolism, and why Russell chose that play to put on in the Abaddon Hotel is for the symbolism of it, for the main character, for both himself and mostly for Alex as well. And I also think outside of Faust, I think Russell and Alex just parallel each other so much, and when it seems that Russell's going down the same road that Alex went down with Hell House in 2009, they go about almost he goes almost full Alex until the very end. He diverts, and there was something that and nobody was expecting. And so, and the difference between Alex and Russell is that Alex did not know what was coming, and Russell did, and so it was kind of a ruse to make himself seem like he was going down the path of Alex, but he knew the whole time that what was coming, so he was more prepared. I thought Faust was a fun way to because I read all of that. All the classes I had to take in high school, I'm so familiar with Faust and all those great tales from the past, that just any way I can put anything in there from old literature and have it as a subtext for what's going on in the A plot is a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, we totally love that. I have a really specific question that I recognize you may not be able to answer if maybe you've got something brewing for, additional story. But so in the first movie, I did a whole like deep dive wondering about this in one of our episodes early on from the summer. But there's a moment near the end of the movie where shit's been going down. They're in the basement. The clowns have moved, and it freaks Tony out. And so Tony basically tries to leave. And we see Mac, who's holding the camera, chase Tony down and say, hey, you can't leave. And then the camera cuts, and like some time has passed, and Mac has told Tony something that makes Tony stay. what is it that he tells him?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I've answered that question before, so it's not,
Okay,
it's not
okay,
something
okay.
I've been holding back on. But and that's another thing, like where that's a scene that like you can tell, I can show what Mac would say, but it doesn't really fit for found footage. There's only so much like of their conversations they're going to record. So, and I also thought it was cool to leave it out, so it's just not right on the nose, and then that leaves it up for interpretation, like what was said, and I think that's fun for the audience if you're not telling them every single plot point right in the film, like this is why this is happening, this is why this is happening. If there's things that are not presented to us but only hinted at, and I think it is hinted at there. Like I think you can find there's if you listen to Alex's dialogue or Mac's dialogue throughout the film, you know that there's things going on behind the scenes of the company Hell House that. There's issues. And it's mostly financial. And Alex bit off more than you could chew. Got the company wrapped up into things that were ill-advised, and Mac was not in on it, but he knew that kind of if they do not succeed there at the Abaddon Hotel, then there is no company because of their financial tanglings. So what Alex needed was a win, and what Hell House needed was a win at the Abaddon Hotel, or their future as a company's done. And so that's what Mac's telling Tony is that like, hey, we can't leave because then we're done as a company. So it's Alex always depending on his employees' loyalty to him as they're not just employees, they're friends. So he leans a lot on loyalties to keep people there, because he needs it to succeed, and thus all of them, because they're all invested in the company as well. So if they do not go on an opening night and have a successful show, then they are doomed anyways. Obviously, that was not the right decision to make because it cost lives, but they did not know. They're really going on in a prayer, just hoping, like, yeah, things are going wrong, things are going bad, but you know, a lot of people in life do that. They have blinders onto their situation and this have blind hope that no matter what's going on in the peripheral, somehow this will work out. and I think that's what Mac, Tony, and Alex, of course, for sure, and Sarah as well. We're all thinking that like yeah, this is nothing about this is right, but let's focus on the mission and maybe we'll get lucky and then everything will be okay. And of course it wasn't.
I love that idea that there are some things that just wouldn't be filmed. So there are these leaps that the audience can kind of fill in and hypothesize. And I think that almost participatory factor in not just found footage, but also particularly this series, I don't know, connecting the dots feels like something we've sort of had to do the whole time. And when I saw the Mitchell ending of Lineage, that felt like just another invitation to go maybe revisit the old films and think about it and chew on it and try to put it together in your head. It felt like kind of a fresh puzzle. I don't know, maybe to branch out here to influences like Maggie was talking about with Faust, are there any, like, what are your favorite suggestive endings within the world of horror? Things that aren't totally conclusive or wrapped up or definitive.
The first thing that just popped in my mind when you asked that question, I don't know if it's my best example, but the very first thing that popped into my head was It Follows.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just like a great ending. I just thought that was a lot of fun. Like they're hand in hand walking down the street and they're being followed. Like that's just to me so cool. Like do you and who's following them? Is it even one of the entities or not? You know, but that just shows it's not over for them. And I thought that was I love that film. Our colorist was the colorist for It Follows, for cool. Lineage. The colors for Lineage were the colors for It Follows, and I've always told him, because I worked with him on 825 Forest Road, and I always told him how much I love It Follows. Not just the film, the plotter. I love the look of it. I love the color palette of that for the exteriors and the interiors. So when he made me a LUT that we used on set. For Lineage though, but he knows that I do love those blues and the saturations of the exteriors as well, with a little bit of greens and blues mixed in there, and so he gave me a LUT to be used on set that looked beautiful. So what we were seeing on the monitor was kind of like how almost what the finished color was going to look like, and it was great to work with him. But I got sidetracked on color, Steve, when you were talking about that. But that was the first. I love that. If that's what do you guys have one in your head that pops up for horror?
Ooh, I feel like I almost prefer bad endings for horror, and by bad I mean everyone dying. Like we did
unhappy.
Well, give me an example. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we spent a year and a half going chapter by chapter through the first Game of Thrones book. And I always wanted that series because I think it leans into horror at all of its most exciting moments. I think the White Walkers are basically zombies. I always wanted that series to end in a blowout of everyone dying, and it's just kind of wind across a graveyard. So I prefer kind of bleak endings, and I think ambiguous endings.
I think the audiences would have taken better to that than what did happen.
I think so too.
But I mean,
and maybe that's what George R. R. Martin's going to do, because not that he will ever in his lifetime, or even if he got an extension on a second lifetime, would ever finish the series.
No,
but
it's eternal.
But yeah, exactly.
And fantasy is an interesting thing because it's so much baked into the hero's journey and traditional storytelling to the point that I think audiences really almost demand a happy ending or a victorious ending so that they can feel satisfied, or almost, I heard people say about Game of Thrones that the journey wouldn't feel worth it unless certain characters were successful. And right. I've always found horror to be more risky, and it makes me think more. It gives me these blowout or ambiguous endings that don't satisfy me, and that's part of the fear. There are some horror movies when the lights come up, you feel exhausted, and other ones where you feel contemplative, and you have to go think about it and talk about it for hours. I don't know. Yeah. I think that's part of the dynamism of the genre that I love so much.
I mean, I think one of my favorite horror endings is The Witch, right? Because it's.
I was going to say The Witch. I was just going to say The Witch, and I'm so glad you say that. I obviously I love Robert Eggers, but the way the Witch was shot and everything, and that's another reason why I wanted to go to move away from found footage, go more narratives. I just love a beautifully shot film as well, but within the horror world. Like, how can you make a beautiful cinematic experience while also horrifying people? That's the goal, and I think Eggers does such a great job of that. But yeah, you're right. It's just like the entire family dies, and she's the one left. She just so right, and the way that ends is so ambiguous and weird. It's so weird, and but weird in a great way.
One of the things I think about, because we did last year, we reviewed all of, we're not a review show. I just mean we went back and talked about all of the Robert Eggers movies. And especially in The Witch and The Lighthouse, I feel like those endings are so maximalist. In The Lighthouse, where Robert Pattinson is screaming and it almost blows out the mic, and then it just cuts to black. Because it almost becomes unsustainable, like the train runs out of track. I got a bit of that sense from Lineage. I don't know why. I mean, we've had like 2 months to chew on this, and there's the moment where you see the cultists sabotaging the car from Carmichael Manor. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, felt like almost finally this moment of you, I guess, as the magician, showing us the magic trick. Because before, in connecting some of those dots, seeing that the person at the end of the hall that we've seen at the clown is now someone from a previous movie. That felt like the end of a story for me, where there was nowhere we could go after that. I don't. Maybe that's more of a comment than a question, but
yeah, no. But I'm glad. That's the thing. I think one thing that I wanted to do in Lineage, which I thought was going to be better received, but clearly not. I thought seeing a narrative peek behind found footage, I thought was going to be cool. Seeing moments of found footage from Origins, but seeing it from the narrative lens, and seeing those moments from a fly on the wall perspective, a third person perspective, those key moments from Margot and Rebecca's experience at the Carmichael, seeing it that way, but then also. The car, as you said, the car won't start. That's just the trope, right? That we can't get ever. Our car won't start, but there's more to it than just it being tropey. There's more. There's sabotage, but why and who? There's so much more to just my car won't start. I'm in a horror movie, and so I was in my head, I was thinking, like, I was high-fiving myself, like, people are going to love this. and then the next day I was like, oh, no, they did not love that at all. Okay, great.
Well, no, we absolutely did. I mean, we talked about it in our episode. We liked sort of because it made the whole thing feel a little sadder, right? Like going back and reflecting, oh, this wasn't just a cool, scary moment. This is like a tragic character moment. And so we really liked getting sort of that re-examining of some of these moments. And I think one of the things that I was thinking also while like processing the move away from found footage to traditional narrative was I kept expecting people to look at the camera and like acknowledge the camera because that's what you're used to. Right. But the fact that they weren't was actually sort of unsettling because then it felt like, oh, I have a different viewpoint of this story now and I feel like I'm invading them more, or like there's this other presence that they're not aware of. I think it just added to the horror of everything. So I thought that change had some really cool effects on the whole experience.
Oh, cool. No, yeah, and thank you for saying that. And but also, I think like when I was coming up with some of the scares, I also knew there's just really no way to shoot that found footage. Like there's no way I could go to the Rockland County Fair, have that opening scene, and then do that scene found footage to me. Like I couldn't wrap my head about it, like how that would. Then I was like, then I can't do anything at the Rockland County Fair because it's like, what are we gonna? Everyone's just going to the fair with their cameras and
in the 90s.
Like, in the 90s, like it's just. It just didn't seem real, so it just I think it opened up the script to like what could be done scare wise as well when you move away from that, because then you're not relying on like, well, why are people filming this at all, and that's always the toughest thing with writing found footage is coming up with a reason for why people would be filming in the first place. Obviously, sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't, and I think in other films as well, same found footage films, sometimes the reason they're filming makes so much sense and it's perfectly explained. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's still fun to watch anyways, even if it's not a great explanation. But that's the goal, and because it's and that was always tough to do for all 4 films, is coming up with that reason.
Yeah, well, I thought it was always interesting to see how the reason for filming evolved, and it always made sense to me, and it was exciting to see it change.
I wanted to do more with like you brought up that in the second one, the Abaddon Hotel, the Morning Mysteries talk show.
Mm-hmm.
That was always like something like in concept. I think was like it like could have been a little bit more. It had more levels to it, and what was going on behind the scenes, like in their figurative green room, and the conversations had right after that between Mitchell and Tasselman, and like but there's like no way to do that in found footage, and I think I was like, I always thought that could be, and also just better, more. I think that scene, also those scenes is obvious of our budget when you see those. That we shot that at my local university. They gave us their students' TV studio. But then it was on me to come up with the backgrounds and the graphics and all that and everything, which I don't have any knowledge of. So it's me watching a lot of YouTube tutorials, trying to figure out how to make a graphic that is somewhat presentable. But this is something I wanted to do a lot more and dig into. It was like I thought that was never developed as much as I originally wanted to. There's so much more there. But anyways, that's not what you had asked. So, sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I thought it was. I thought the TV station was great because to me it was like, oh yeah, that's a shitty local news station. Like it made total sense to me.
It is. Yeah, you're right. It's like small town. They're not at 30 Rock, obviously. So yeah.
But the thing you remember from that sequence is the rug pull. For me, it's realizing that old guy is Andrew Tully. Mm-hmm. In the same way, the first one, I remember that Sarah is dead at the end, or the third one, who Russell Wynn is. It's these revelations that all happen on the page. I don't know. That's what sticks with me.
Me too.
I don't know. Because you've spent 10 years working on this franchise and iterating on this complex world, are there any ideas or stories or maybe other projects that you're working on that were inspired along the way?
Inspired by Hell House?
Inspired by the process of writing or filming or, like you said, getting into the sequel business. I'm just wondering how your current and future work is informed by this 10-year stint within Hell House.
Yeah, well, I think my time with Hell House has made me a better writer, and knowing, and especially pacing scares, and knowing that I think the thing I take away the most is that I hate having to cut into films a lot because what I like to take my time, even if the script comes out to like 90 pages. The scares, I like to draw them out and let them breathe and build, slowly build on every scare. So the scares end up being long. And then my runtime on my films are long. And then I have to find ways to cut into them because they're like, you can't have a 100+ minute movie. You got to cut it down. So I'm like, oh shit, because I can't cut into the scares. And so what I've realized is that like I applied that to my writing process, knowing that if I want to take my time with scares, then I can't take my time with other things. So I gotta like make the story tighter. Therefore, I don't have to worry. I can just let the scares breathe as much as I want. And I have to worry about run times. And so little things like that are in my head. But it's really I think the biggest thing is just paying a lot of attention to the finer details and stories, because I think what I love doing in the original Hell House much is those breadcrumbs that could branch out to something else. And a lot of those breadcrumbs did become more. But in anything I write now, I kind of like having more, the idea that there's more there than what we've seen. A bigger world there, like small little clues touched on, some Easter eggs touched on. I love just having that. And I think 825 has some of that as well. There's just more to 825 than what you see in the story that happened, Helen's original story. So I think what I've taken the most away from it is the fact that I know that people enjoyed the way the original was told, and having those Easter eggs, and I like applying that even to original, still having like little kernels in there, hidden nuggets in there that have meaning if you're paying enough attention to. It's just fun. I think just telling a narrative 3-act structure story is okay, but I think it's more fun for the audience if there's more depth and more to find, almost like a Waldo book within your movie. If you can plant some seeds and some Easter eggs throughout, and leave and more up to interpretation of a greater world being out there, I think is a lot of fun.
Totally. It makes for a more rewarding film experience.
Yeah, and I think that's why, I mean, we've talked about this within the context of the Insidious movies or The Haunting of Hill House, where there are those kind of ghosts or demons hidden in the margins that you keep going back to. As you develop news stories, are you mostly thinking about standalone projects? Has the sequel business totally scared you off developing any new franchises?
Yeah, no, I think everything I'm writing, even the movie I'm going into next, which is A Body in the Woods, while these are one-off stories, there's something to them that can always be expanded on. And that's not to say that I am going to or want to. I'm just saying, like, I don't like something so closed off. I like something where if someone put a gun to my head and say, hey, can you make a prequel to this story or a sequel to this story, I'd be like, sure, easy. There's something more to this. I didn't like what this world isn't just confined to the 90 minutes you just saw. But I'm not gone into anything with the idea of sequels or any franchise, and I never would. But I just think naturally the stories that I like to tell just have more to them than what you're seeing, so it could be there. But that's not on purpose. Like, I don't go into a story saying like, "Ooh, this could be the next Hell House." I could see this being a trilogy. Like, I go into it with just writing a cool. I just want what I hope is a fun original story for the audience. But there's always so much more there. There's going to be history. There's going to be lore, mythology within the story that's going to say, hey, like, there could be more if the opportunity presented itself. But it's not the purpose or the desire to do more.
Sure. I think as Hell House has gone on, I've been struck by, obviously, the fear factor. Lineage, I mean, we loved seeing it in the theater, and that one scared the shit out of me.
Me too.
In the best way. But I was so taken with the characters and the melancholy, and I thought Vanessa, I thought that was an incredible arc. And there was such human drama there. Have you thought about making anything outside of the horror genre?
No.
A true lowest.
I haven't. There's ideas that I have that are fun, that are not horror, but I'm kind of like, nobody's signing up to come see Stephen Cognetti's next rom-com or drama. even I have a friend who's doing like horror comedy. He's he's got a script for a horror comedy that I think is such a great idea, and he was telling me the concept. I'm like, this is hilarious. I actually do myself love comedy, and I like writing comedy. I feel writing comedy, writing jokes and scares are kind of similar in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't see myself branching out to it. I loving staying in this genre so much. It's so much fun to the goal is always like, can we scare people? And I love having that mountain to climb, that whale to get. Like, it's hard to scare people, I think, anymore. I think audiences are so desensitized. So like, it's like a fun challenge to say, we're going to go into this movie, we're going to try to scare people. Whether we succeed or not is up to every individual viewer, though. But I love that challenge, and it's fun to write within that. I do see, like, it does seem like once, like, a lot of horror filmmakers, once they get more established, they kind of start drifting away from horror and get into other things. It seems like there's a lot of that happening, and I do see people leaving the genre a lot, either in front of the camera or behind the camera. But for me right now, my projection, I have 3 scripts teed up that I want to make. They're all horror. They're all fun original stories. Okay, when I say fun original stories, fun is what I mean. In my opinion, it's fun. Well, whether anyone else finds it fun is like getting ahead of myself. But in the next one is The Body in the Woods, and The Body in the Woods is horrifying. Definitely the scariest thing I've ever written. I just cannot wait to get into production on it. And it's original. You're going to sit down and just have 90 minutes of just terror. It's going to be so much fun. The next one I have written after that is a story called Nobody Knows This. These are just scripts I have that only me and my managers have seen. Nobody else has seen. But it's not A Body in the Woods. Everyone's seen that. Because we're kind of set to go into production in 26. But the next one I have is a story called Iliut. And Iliut is an island off the coast of Nova Scotia. I love this story, love these characters, love these scares, and I just completed the last draft of it just a week ago. So this is very fresh, so nobody's seen it, but it's horror as well. And I have another script called The Halloween Store, which is this is something I wrote back in 22, I think. So it's not new, but it's a story. It's just a big story. It would be hard to do because it would take a big budget, but it's a fun horror story taking place in a Halloween store. It's kind of reeks of Hell House a little bit, but it's so different though. It's not like a rehash of Hell House. It's something completely different, whole different world, different characters, different scares, and I would love to make that. So to say like venture out of horror, I'm like, I got 3 scripts that I'm dying to get made, and they're all horror, and they're original, and that would even if I got to make all those, that would take us almost a decade from now. So, so I don't see anytime soon venturing out of that as well. And then as I told you, to start our conversation, and then while in between all of this, I'm going to try to get, the more graphic novels and stuff at Hell House out there. So I think my life for the next decade will just be consumed by horror.
I mean, that's exciting to me. I agree. We see a lot of horror directors moving away out of horror into other genres, and that always is a little disappointing to me. So I'm thrilled that you're staying, and I appreciate you sharing these upcoming projects. We'll look forward to all of those for sure.
What a great title, A Body in the Woods.
Oh my God, I know. So you said that's going into production in 26. Do we have a timeline for release on that?
No. We don't even have a timeline for when it's going to production right now. It's just the script was acquired. We're trying to just early stages of attach some cast to it, and go from there. But it hasn't even been announced. Like, nothing about it's been announced, and I think it's been under secrecy for so long. I mentioned something I spoke out of turn about it at school about it. I was speaking at a film festival recently, and I got a little bit into it, and I said a little bit more than I should. I said a little bit about the synopsis and all this stuff, and I just thought it was like a small group of filmmakers, intimate session, right? And then someone comes up to me afterwards. They're like, "Hey, I'm from Bloody Disgusting. Loved what you had to say there." And I was like, I did not know you were here. I'm not really allowed to say much about this project. You mind not printing anything about the plot that I just said? So, and he was very, very nice guy. Yeah, and he said no problem. But so he just wrote up something about, like, just something small about that it is a project happening, hopefully in 26, but not about the plot details I divulged, because it's like, it's just we're not allowed to. I'm not allowed to say anything, I guess, about it until more is publicly announced. So, but it's something I'm very excited about. The writing in this is just a lot of fun. It's period piece, I could say that. It's early 20th century. So not crazy deep period, not like The Witch kind of period piece.
Sure.
But not, definitely not present day. But it's just, there's so much about this that I'm just excited for. And I can just only, like, I keep on, like, just beating around the bush. I'm just like, I'm excited. But, like, that's all I can say.
Of course, yeah.
So.
No, we're excited too. We'll definitely keep an eye out for that, and I'm sure we will be there seated day one for when it comes out. I think this is a good place to leave us as we all look forward and think about all of your open-ended projects, and just think and leave our, this episode open-ended as well. So thank you, Stephen, so much for talking with us about Hell House and your experience. It's such a treat for us to get to talk to you. Listener,
it's a treat for me to get to talk to you guys as well, because as I said, I appreciate the episodes you guys have done on Hell House, and you guys really took the time to dive into more of the lore and the story. And I really respected that, and I enjoyed listening to your previous podcasts.
That, of course, is the noise that we make to denote time travel. So we're recording this little tag after the interview. What an amazing time.
Oh my God. So much fun. He was so nice.
And so generous with his time, with the thoughtfulness of those answers. Mm-hmm. Oh, that was just incredible.
And I love that. I mean, you always hope that the creators that you talk to really, really are big fans of the thing you're talking about. And man, he is. Like, he's a horror loyalist. And that was so much fun.
I didn't want to make him uncomfortable by just complimenting the film too much. I know I did that.
I know I did it a lot too, but like, because it's genuine.
I know. And the last thing
I loved your movie.
I kept biting my tongue because I wanted to ask a question instead of just gushing it, because I feel such passion for this franchise. I feel such inspiration watching these, revisiting these, even thinking about them with you and with the audience. But I don't know. I think Lineage felt just as inspired as the rest of them.
Same. I think the whole series, I think, is perfect. I love the way it, grows from the first Hell House, and as bulletproof as the first one is, and they all work on their own, but they also all work in conjunction with one another, and they build upon each other. Like, it's a great series, and I'm really excited to see what he does next.
And you wouldn't want any artist to keep working on a project that they didn't care for anymore, that they didn't feel invested and inspired by. So he talked about 3 movies that he's got in the can, and now all of these ideas he's working, and maybe future Hell House in a different medium. I'm so excited by all of that. And I mean, honestly, the kind of bravery and creative integrity to move on instead of making these kind of any sort of begrudging sequel. How many franchises in horror can say they've never had a lackluster, uninspired sequel? Mm-hmm. This is 5 for 5.
Right. I know. It's amazing. And I love that he was like not down for someone else to take it on. I was hoping that would be his answer, but I was like, I don't know. I was like, maybe that's what you mean by it's not my last movie, but no, he just is like, no, other things. No, this is great. Listener, we hope you enjoyed this Halloween special. We're so happy that this worked out. And I think we can officially say the end of Summerween now that October has ended.
We started this in like June, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, not that we're not going to talk about horror until next summer. Obviously we will, but we're going to scale back on the horror a bit, maybe dive into some other things. We're going to see some return to some fantasy stuff pretty soon.
We're talking about a fantasy book again soon.
I know, it's going to be fun. Can you guess which one? Probably, but whatever. But no, so thank you for joining us for Summerween. If you haven't heard our other Summerween episodes, we just basically at least once a week been doing one every week since June. So go check those out.
And we've done some classics. We talked about last week, we did a retrospective on the original 1978 Halloween. We talked about the original, what's the Jason one? Friday the 13th. Thank you.
The Jason one.
The Jason one.
Horror fan. Okay.
But also a ton of indies along the way, a ton of new things that might have flown under the radar, or pulling them into our world, talking about The Long Walk. And I've gotten a lot out of this series this year, and the engagement with the viewers and the listeners has just been excellent. So thank you guys so much for going along with us on this ride.
Thank you. And please comment down below what thoughts you have about our interview with Stephen.
And Lineage, if you're just seeing it for the first time on Shudder.
Yes, good. Please, share your thoughts, feelings, as always. If you're on YouTube, you can comment down below. If you're listening on a podcast platform, you can send us an email, secondbreakfastpod, or send us a DM on Instagram. thank you all so much for listening to this really special episode. A couple plugs, of course. Please check out our Patreon. Our Patreon is $2 a month. Over there, we post bonus episodes. We get 2 bonus episodes every month. And of course, if you join, you can access all of the previously published bonus episodes. We talk about a lot of horror there, but also a lot of other things. So go check that out. Also, please check out Cam's latest book, Lemon Tarts in Space. It's a light sci-fi, dark comedy. It is so much fun. You can read it as a regular book or as an audio drama. The audio drama is a really, really cool experience. It's basically Alien meets Monty Python. It's Flubber meets Friday the 13th, or as Cam says, the Jason one. But it's a really, really good time. So go check that out. Like, subscribe, etc. Anything else we want to share?
No, I feel so happy.
Me too.
I'm so honored that, as well as Stephen Cognetti. Now, of course, we did the interview a couple years ago now with Anthony de Blasi.
Yeah, that's right.
Talking about Malum.
Yeah, that was a really fun discussion as well.
That was, as far as like demons on screen and creature design and scrappy creative indie filmmaking, we've got 2 of the greats now in our catalog. And I'm just so honored that they cared about our show and our episodes enough to come on here and talk to us. So yeah.
I'm amazed. So yeah, thank y'all so much for listening and for helping us, for building us up enough so that these great, amazing creators can see our work. What was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say Happy Halloween. Stream Hell House Lineage on Shudder. It is Halloween. Happy Halloween.
We're in the days.
Yeah, we're just, it's been an exciting morning. Happy Halloween. Stream Hell House Lineage on Shudder, and we'll catch you here. Oh, I'm sorry. What?
No, I was just thinking, I'm kind of hungry now.
Yeah.
And I could go for a second breakfast.
Whoa, crazy. Isn't it funny how that works? All right, well, we're going to go eat our second breakfast. Happy Halloween. We'll catch you here in just a few days with another brand new episode.